This is the Comedy Kiosk, podcast by Mondae and Munoz. Please welcome Mondae and Munoz.
Hello and welcome to the Comedy Kiosk, a podcast in which we discuss news, ideas, and opinions about comedy. My name is Igor Mondae.
And I'm David Munoz.
And today we've prepared a topic with a catchy name, which is perfect present jokes. And David, since this one was your suggestion idea, can you please introduce us to this topic?
Well, okay. So actually it wasn't my idea. It was Raul's idea.
Oh, Raul.
Yeah, Raul. Who's from England.
Okay. I wanted to say, ¿Qué es Raul?
Yeah. No, Raul is actually a former colleague of mine, recently former, who is British, but he's actually half Catalan, half Spanish. Catalan, whatever. So that's why the Spanish name, Raul.
That's not offending anyone.
No,
Whatever.
Not at all. But he suggested, because we were discussing, he found out that I did stand-up, and he was like, well, how do you approach current events in jokes? Like, you know, because he was kind of curious, like, how would we do that? And I said, well, actually, I'll make I'll write it down in the suggestion sheet for us to do a podcast on. And now here we are. We're actually going to discuss current events in jokes. I think when we were discussing it, we also discussed how, between you and I, like, when should you make jokes about current events and things like that, but also maybe the expiration date of current event jokes. Like, when do they stop being joke-worthy in a sense, or stop getting that laugh? So I think we can discuss those sorts of different elements and things like that. But to start off, have you ever made any current event jokes, Igor?
Yeah, I have, but sometimes I feel like those jokes, to me at least, are not worth writing.
Ooh.
Because, okay, I'll give you the most recent example, and maybe some people or most people will be familiar with this. Have you seen The Tinder Swindler?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like a huge hype around this documentary, right?
Yeah.
And basically that was like, but for like a week. That's how things happen now, you know, like for a week, it's the most important, the most popular, the most talked about thing in the world, like Squid Game was at some point and stuff like this. And then 2 weeks later, no one remembers it anymore. And even not just like the shows or something, but I don't know, remember like a fidget spinner and such things like that.
Unfortunately, yes, I still do.
So yeah, of course we all remember it, but it's not, it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So something like this happens, and it's kind of interesting and important only for like a week. And if it was some kind of topical show, like something, Mock the Week or something like this, like a TV show where you kind of week to week there is a new episode, and that's what you do. You discuss the last week in news or something like this. So sure, that's the whole point. But for my set, for my performance, I'm trying to write jokes that I can cash in on, that I can, basically that will feed me for years to come. So, and if not feed me, at least get me a drink at the bar. So those kind of jokes, like sometimes if they're really easy, like for example, the Tinder Swindler one, I remember when I was hosting a show, maybe 3-4 days after it came out, and people started writing about it, and there were all these memes and posts and stuff.
And you were saying you look like the Tinder Swindler. You could be mistaken for him.
That's not what I was saying, but
okay.
Maybe thank you. I don't know. Many women found him attractive, so maybe thank you, but probably not, since you compared me to a horrible person. Anyways, that's not. No.
Allegedly horrible. I mean, he's saying that he's innocent. Remember that he hasn't actually been. Was he actually charged?
I don't think he was charged. I think he was.
He was charged for something else.
Wanted.
He ended up in Israel for 3 months. In
but
prison.
that was some forging some documents or something like from 10 years ago. But for this actual fraud, I think, the point is, and that's a funny thing, that he actually, I don't know what is the legal...
Started dating an Israeli model after the Tinder swindle, while that thing came out, and he's still dating her.
That's not the funny part. That's an amazing part. The impressive part.
Amazing, like, wow. Even after that, she likes you. Interesting.
The funny part is I'm not sure that they have any grounds to actually legally prosecute him, because they just gave him their money. Yeah. So, it's not that he stole it. He asked them, give me money, and they were like, here's my money, I'll take more credit and loans and stuff. So, but anyways, not to get into that. But I was hosting a show a few days after that became a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I was doing the bucket pitch. Right? So if you like the show, leave us the money and stuff like this. And I was like, leave us extra money this week because, my enemies are after me, or something like this. Just a line from the documentary. And you got a huge laugh and applause because that's the thing that people knew in that moment.
Did it help with the bucket?
Yes. But maybe not that exact thing, but
No, it was that. It was that.
Oh, then
let's face it.
Good job, me.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. But if it's easy, like I just came up with that 5 minutes before going on stage. But to actually like prepare a joke, like to work on it, to write it, to work on it, to workshop it and stuff, that's gonna become, I don't know, outdated in 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months. To me, it's a huge risk because I'm really trying to work more on the material that I can do for months or years to come. That are going to become like the backbone of my set or some like longer club set, TV set, whatever I end up doing. So those kind of, they can be a little like throwaway jokes, like if something happened this week, there was a story. I have some jokes about current events, but they are written in such a way that you don't know when that happened.
Right, yeah.
One of my jokes, I think I was just reading newspapers and I saw this headline, which is about like, there is one about sex robots, there is one about the woman in the train station and stuff like this. That happened at some point, but now 4 years later, I'm still saying, because you don't know when that happened. It's not a news story that people actively know. Yeah. But if you joke about something, like I had a joke about Croatia, like being Croatian and the World Cup, like FIFA World Cup 2018, because Croatia was in the finals and then everyone discovered what the fuck Croatia is and stuff like this. I had a joke about that. And that joke was a good joke for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks, World Cup was like a month. People were crazy about it stuff. 2 weeks after we finished, no one gave a shit about football again. So
wait, Croatia? No, forgot it. Where was it?
Football? What?
Yeah.
World? What? So yeah, it's one of those things that I think for me, I would maybe like to talk about things that are happening, but if it's kind of, just a small, easy joke, if I have to spend time on it and actually, perfect this joke and practice it and workshop it, then it's just not worth it because it becomes outdated too fast.
All right, yeah. I remember hearing, I can't remember who it was, but there was a stand-up comedian who was being interviewed, and he basically was saying that, he doesn't, like, a current event might inspire him to talk about a particular issue or something that an injustice, for example. And he was saying, that's fine, but then he will not focus on the details of the present story, but on the broader brushstrokes. Strokes. So that strokes.
Are you having a stroke?
Strokes. Yeah, brush strokes. So the point is that he was saying that he tries to make it more broader because then it has longevity. So instead of mentioning maybe something specific that I think he was a British comedian, like something specific that a Tory MP did, like, this guy did this and, what about the injustice? No, he just talks about how generally conservative politicians will do this sort of stuff. And there's multiple examples of them doing this sort of thing. And he can use the current one, but as one of many, but it's not based on this event. It's based on the general idea of what is wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he that's what he said. He's like, he doesn't make topical jokes. He talks about, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? I've just gone blank.
Like patterns or something like this that are always going to be relevant.
Or just universal truths of the era, of the time sort of stuff. Like I was thinking of something similar. I wanted to play with the idea of, with the George Floyd and all these sort of things happening. Like, if you talked about it now, it's a little bit, after everything that's happened, people might say it's a little bit outdated. But if you combat the idea of police brutality, and I was actually thinking for some reason, I was thinking of was there police brutality during the Roman era? That sort of thing, and the Praetorian Guard or whatever, them picking on the minority groups, the carriages. If they saw a black man in a carriage, would they pull him over and be like, "Where did you get the carriage from?" He's like, "It's mine. I'm a gladiator." Yeah, do you have anything to prove that you're a gladiator? That sort of thing, and the fame. Don't you know who I am? And, like a basketball player getting pulled over in the States and then having to deal with like this embedded racism. And my whole point was that it's always been a thing of, whoever's in power, whoever the police state is or the police force always abuses their power and picks on any minority group and basically saying, you know what, this thing has been going on for thousands of years. So it's not focusing on one particular incident that can go out of date, but it's basically, you can use it. I can talk about that. But to point out the larger universal injustice of authority figures abusing their powers, and in particular picking on stereotypes of minorities and people who are considered lower class.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, if you maybe draw a parallel between something that's like, Roman Empire will always exist in our like history lectures and in our, like there's never going to be a person on this earth that goes to a stand-up show, at least, that's never heard of Roman Empire and gladiators and stuff. So taking that and then comparing it to something that's more relevant, maybe not right now.
But a general idea of police brutality or abuse of power.
Or racism or like whatever. Yeah, that's still like a hot topic, even though it's not now just happening at the moment, this specific story and this specific but I think in that case, of course, if you can write like a strong bit or set around that, that works. But I think a lot of comics, for example, they will go for that current news. We all know.
Yeah, I'm edgy.
Yeah, it's not even, I don't think it's even edgy, because if 99% of people are talking about the same thing, then it's not edgy at all. It's like, I'm topical, but that's why they shoot themselves in the leg, because I think that if it's a part of, again, if it's your SNL monologue, or if it's like some kind of panel show or political satire show
monologue,
and you're referencing something that happened last week, something like John Oliver, something like Trevor Noah, something like Mock the Week,
Stephen Colbert,
this kind of stuff, American, British, whatever. So that works. That's the whole point. You are there to comment on the current events. But if you make a whole stand-up special for Netflix, and your first 15 minutes, 20 minutes are about Trump versus Clinton and why Trump won and how he shouldn't have, and you release this special in 2017, that's, let's say, not sure how funny it is. I never thought it was funny, but it's topical. People are like, wow, he's speaking the truth, right? If I turn on in 2022, 2 years after Trump lost his last election, and no one really cares what happened 7 years ago.
Since then we've had COVID, and now we've got this issue in the eastern parts of Europe and all the rest. So
no one, and I turn on this same special, I can't watch first 15-20 minutes because they mean nothing to me.
They're just like, get over it.
It's like, same as if I would turn on some special from the 90s now, and the guy's like, hey, what's the deal with this Clinton guy? Is he like, does he have like a secretary he's into? I'm like, what? It's just that's so that's not like.
But then that's the point. That's the point. What this comedian was saying was that, okay, you look at what is the topic about. So in this case, it would be about like bosses and things like taking advantage of their underlings, their secretaries, and you could point out like all the way from like admin and all that sort of stuff. Like what's it called? The one with John Hamm as the advertising guy. Mad Men, and following it up like the examples from that period of time, all through Clinton and things like that. But the idea is that you're not focusing on Clinton getting the blowjob. Instead, you're focusing on guys in power doing that, and then how eventually the Weinstein stuff. So you could kind of go into like a darker sort of stuff, and how eventually the retribution. And this is the whole point: is this comedian was saying you need to think of the broader brushstrokes. Yeah, but this is only if your topic of your set is. Abusing the position of power or something like this, getting ahead in the Oval Office. And Beavis and Butthead moment.
Crack myself up. So if that's your topic of your bit or set, but then you give this as one of many examples, then it works. But if this is your topic, same as like I still hear to this day comedians making at least tags, maybe not punchlines, but tags, something like, but don't drink it around Bill Cosby, something like this, it still kind of makes sense because it was fairly recent and we all know what they're referring to. But do you think in like 6, 7, 15 years, someone's going to know like, why are they, what? Who?
Well, it's very of the moment to us. Yeah, probably by then Bill Cosby will be dead and forgotten, sort of stuff, or will be something like, oh, do you remember that? Oh, yeah, there was that guy. He used to be really popular and was considered one of the greats. And then
people still do. People still do, and I see it not only in like stand-up, but I see it in some movies or sitcoms and stuff. They do the OJ joke or something like this, But Family Guy does a lot of those, like, what do they call them, like
throwbacks? Not
throwbacks, like cut-offs or something when it goes
when the tangents, they go on the tangents. Yeah.
So about that kind of stuff, and about stuff that happened before and so on. But at some point it's just gonna become, people are just gonna be like, because if you tell me now,
Yeah, I don't get it.
yeah, if you in your set tell me now about something that happened, let's say in the 60s,
Yeah.
where a person attempted to, I don't know, something celebrity something, I'm like, what are you talking about?
What?
Like people now talk. There is also like some stand-up bits about something Justin Bieber from like 2014. You find like a stand-up bit or a special or something of a comedian who's like, yeah, what's the deal with this Justin Bieber dude? He's like, he like had a monkey. He like had his own monkey and he took his monkey on tour. Oh, what a retard. Like now that was like, so like calling him, oh, what a piece of shit. He like got a monkey, then he got rid of him somewhere and left him somewhere in Thailand, stuff like this. But then, since then, that he was a kid and since then, Justin Bieber became like, grew up, got a wife, became a normal person. And it just doesn't, it's not relevant.
Now it just sounds like you were picking on a kid for living his life and being just a kid and making some dumb mistakes. And you're like, dude, that's a bit low. Like, come on, he's just a kid. Yeah. Haha, who's got the egg on their face now?
So that's
Justin Bieber haters.
So that's why I think it's even a bit of like a, minefield, because if you go, for example, everyone was, all those jokes, all those specials and those left-wing comics that were doing the Trump bashing and stuff in their like stand-up, but and he wasn't elected for the second term, and now there's another president, and no one really jokes about him because there's nothing funny to say. Just an old man who's probably senile and stuff like this. But if he was elected for the second term, and if he did something really amazing or something really horrible and stuff, and then people are 20 years from then looking back at this special and they would be like, why would they, what was the point? So,
but at the same time, it can be used as an interesting, like, okay, let's listen to what comedians were saying in the first year of his, term, the second year, the third year, and see how it changes and what topics. Because in a way, might be interesting for historians to look at stand-up comedians and seeing what they're saying about this guy, because then they can kind of put things in a more chronological order. And it's like, well, obviously at this point, this was still on everyone's mind, but at this point, people had moved on and were discussing this. You can see that shift in.
I think you're talking about some kind of post-apocalyptic future where all the data and records of normal human behavior has perished. Like, anthropologists, historians, sociologists are like, we have no information, no knowledge about this period of time. Except there is this one special by a guy called Bill Burr. So he's probably a historian because he's talking to a bunch of, was it a TED Talk?
A very funny historian.
Very funny historian doing a TED Talk on the then current American president. Let's take this as the sacred scroll that we will
Dr.
follow.
Bill Burr's.
Yeah, Dr. Burr.
Dr. Burr's
but
TED Talk on the evolution of American politics.
Yeah, so I mean that's why I'm saying it's always like some things are gonna be have like a longer lifespan, and some things are gonna, like the Tinder swindler jokes are gonna have like a week or 2 week lifespan, and the president can have a 4-year lifespan. Like the jokes
about Catholic priests for forever.
Well, that's forever, but also not forever. I'm sure like at some point it's
once
gonna
the
become...
Catholic Church is demolished and all organized religion is gone, then it will finally become an irrelevant joke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not even only then, because those jokes were really, really popular when those kind of, some priests were actually...
But you can still throw them around now. You can, well, he's not a Catholic priest, and people know exactly what you're talking about.
That's because people talked about it so much, it became a part of like popular culture.
Yeah,
it's like
it became a cliche.
Yeah, it's like a joke that you can... It's not even like, I don't know, I won't say that...
It's a bit maybe hack, as we discussed in a previous episode.
Called hack. No, it wasn't. What was it
called? Can You Hack It or something?
Can You Hack It? Exactly.
Like that.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm saying like sooner or later, most of those current affairs jokes are gonna become obsolete.
Okay, so my question now, next question. Can you have a topical joke that you can use whenever a similar topic pops up? For example, I've never done it, but there was a bit. I remember once there was one of these shootings in America. It's a horrible thing.
I like the kind of laid back, casual way. There was one of these shootings in America.
That's my point exactly. It's one of these shootings in America that happens so frequently that someone had told me about their experience of living in America and this sort of thing that had happened about someone being spotted with a firearm, and also and I was kind of, and it happened around Texas, and I thought, man, it sounds like when a coyote would enter like a suburb, and there would be like a thing saying, be careful, there's a coyote, don't let your kids play outside, and blah, blah, blah. Like, they were treating it in such a way that it was just very casual, that, oh, there's been a guy spotted with a gun in this neighborhood. Just, be careful when you go out. Maybe not let the kids go outside. Think about that. Yeah. What? Yeah. And it's a very blasé thing. And I thought, my God, like, how commonplace can this be? Now, the thing is, I was thinking of it. I was playing with the idea. And then I felt like, too much time has gone past. If I do it now, it's just not going to be. But it would still be, because America's famous for it. And then a few months later, another shooting happened. And I'm like, well, I could technically use this bit. And then I kind of worked on it a little bit more. But I still, once again, I thought, the moment's passed, because I wasn't doing that. Maybe I just didn't do any gigs at that moment or whatever. I just didn't feel it was ready. And then I was like, but I know there's going to be another one. And at some point I could probably polish off this bit and eventually maybe even do it. But it's one of those like reaffirming. It's a horrible thing that this happens, but it's sort of like, well, this happens enough times. Well, the tragedy of it.
Yeah. If it's a recurring event that gets renewed every season.
Yeah.
So that maybe you can reuse it, the same joke. But I remember one of our comics here also had a joke, I think when it happened actually, which was maybe 5 years ago or something, 5-6 years ago, when that plane disappeared, Malaysian Air or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that some like big time comics also had bits about that. And I remember he had something like, how do you lose a whole damn plane, blah, blah. And that was the whole bit. And he stopped doing it soon after. But in one of his jokes, he had like a tag or a follow-up to a punchline or something like, you should never lose your keys or whatever was the whole bit. And then the big punchline comes and like something like, and that's why you should never lose your keys, something like this, right? And then the tag after that is like, or a Malaysian airplane. Whatever, something like this. Just like a small callback to something that happened. But it's a callback to something that happened 6 years ago. And mostly it would get nothing.
Yeah.
Because people are like, people are like, I remember something about that. What was that? Oh, right, the plane disappeared. Oh, it's just like too hard.
Or they won't know that it's actually Malaysian Airlines. So they're like, why Malaysian Airlines? What's that? It's like, there was a plane missing. Oh, yeah, was that Malaysian Airlines? Yeah, it was.
It prompts a discussion and kind of, a walk down the memory lane more than it prompts a laugh or something. You're like, oh, right, that happened. Oh, shit, they never found that plane. Like, it gets you thinking more than it kind of fosters a laugh.
So he has to now ditch the tag.
Yeah, I mean, he should have done it long time ago, but he still does the same joke in the same way.
Oh, really?
Because he never updates his jokes. But I'm saying only in the case of another airplane disappearing somewhere in the world, he can then say some other insert company name Air and do that same tag and joke. But, to write a joke that you can use for 2 weeks and hope that in the next 10 years, another plane will crash or disappear.
Yeah.
Like, it's very...
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, the bit that I was talking about was one that, once it's passed, you stop doing it. But then later on, it comes back. Because, okay, the perfect thing is, now he doesn't do it, but Jim Jeffries, he has, the one about the gun control, right? Every time there is a mass shooting in America, around Facebook and Instagram, this clip of him doing this bit about gun control always because it becomes relevant again. It becomes topical again. That technically, if he wasn't famous and he was just a touring comic, this is a bit that he could every so often, whenever this incident happens, bring it out and it would be a killer set. So this is what I'm saying about maybe... if it's something that seems to happen again and again, then maybe it might be worth creating a bit and just something that you can keep in your back pocket, that when something happens like that again or similar, that you can just need to tweak it a little bit, you bring out. So that guy with that Malaysian Air joke, it's not saying get rid of the joke. It's just like, just put it on pause until another airplane goes missing. And then you can bring it out, or something else big goes missing, like a cruise ship or something or whatever,
It almost feels like you're encouraging comedians to take terrorism into their own hands just so their jokes can be relevant again. It's like, if
they're the only jokes you have, you might have to.
If you want to make this joke really, really work, how about you hijack a plane, hide it real well, and then you can go back to doing
for
those
2
jokes.
weeks. But after that, you're gonna have to just hijack another one.
Let them go.
Yeah, let them go.
You can workshop your material a bit in the plane.
Yeah.
Then like cash in on that
Captive
joke.
audience.
Yeah. Nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So I mean, unless it flies over their head. But I mean, that's a way to do it. Like write some jokes about topics that can perpetually become like relevant again, like gun control and gun like violence, church, organized religion, and whatever, and some kind of pedophilia or whatever incidents they have. They have a bunch. I don't know, forest fires in Australia, revolutions in revolutions in Central America, Latin America. Like, there are some things that are still going to happen probably again and again, but probably, hopefully not. But, sadly.
But just be ready.
But be ready.
The chuckles.
But
when tragedy strikes.
Have some jokes ready just in case. Be there first.
Yeah.
Be there like.
Oh, but see, that's okay. And this is another point. Now, the famous saying about comedy is tragedy plus time. Tragedy plus time equals comedy. This is kind of like one of the famous quips or things about comedy. Now, the thing is, when you're doing a topical event, this is where it's about, I think, do you think it could be maybe finding that balance? Like, you can be the first one in there to make a joke about it, but then tends to be that those jokes are kind of the simpler versions or the obvious jokes, but you get in, you get the laugh. But maybe if you take a bit more time, with the more time, you can really pull out the essence, or you can really come up with an interesting perspective that is not the common idea of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I know what you mean, and I think this saying or whatever has a meaning, makes sense. But I think it's, if you take it as a premise of your bit or set or a show, that like I'll create a funny joke out of something that happened, plus enough time for people to get over it and start laughing at it. Or even if you just take something that happened and, let it chill a bit, let it cool, and then you bring it back from dead. I think it can only work if it's properly planned and executed. So not if you if I tomorrow come on stage and I'm like, so what's with this Trump guy that was elected? Just not going to work. No matter how big of a tragedy that was and how much time has passed since then. It's just, but I'll give an example, and this is something that I talked about in one of our episodes, this special, not this particular thing. There's a special on Netflix by Phil Wang, Philly Wang.
Yep.
Which was his Edinburgh show, and it won an award for the best Edinburgh show and stuff in 2019. And then he wanted to film it and put it on Netflix.
Yep.
Boom. Pandemic happened. It took him a year and a half to actually film that show when they allowed people back into theaters, this and that. So he filmed it something like maybe late or mid 2021 instead of early 2020. And the first like 5 or 7 minutes of the show, he's doing the show as if he would before the pandemic ever happened. And the majority...
Without a mask, breathing on people's faces, touching them.
Well, that's how he would do it, I think, anyways. Yeah. No one did stand up wearing a mask. But no, his jokes are something like, I was traveling the other day. And then something like, so I was at this farmer's market and I was buying... Because he's also, I'm not sure, I think he's ethnically Chinese.
Something like that.
I mean, he's British, but I think he's ethnically Chinese from maybe...
Or maybe I think his dad is
something like this. I'm not sure. Just I don't want to assume his ethnicity, but yeah, he's Asian British, right? So, and I think one of his jokes is even something like, "Oh, I was buying this free range bat meat at a Chinese market," something like this. Like it's just, and he was like, "Do you guys?" Can you see that all these jokes were written before this thing happened?
Oh, he even points it out.
He points it out. He's like, that's what my shows should have been if you heard it in time. So he does this like small bit. I don't know, I can't now remember, was it first 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes of his show? Right. But he does it as it was supposed to be. And he's like, do you see how much time has passed and how irrelevant this has become? And he reflects on it. He mentions it, right? And that's how it works in that bit. Because he made a bit out of a bit. He made a joke out of the fact that he can't do his own joke. But he did it anyway and then said, wouldn't that be funny if you heard it 2 years ago? Right? So that he really, like, that's a properly written,
well, it just shows that a good comedian can pretty much turn anything into the joke, even if it's out of date.
Yeah. But
to a degree. Like, you can go a bit more meta with it.
But would that work if he just let it, if he shelved it for like 4 more years? Yeah. Not because he still recorded and released the special as soon as he could. So
Yeah.
the first chance he had to fill a theater and get a crew filming and stuff, he did it. But if he waited like 5 more years and then referenced, but do you now recognize that this joke was supposed to be 2019 and people were like, yeah, that was 5 years ago, man. We have live shows for 3 years already. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, one thing I've noticed with comedians, and I've always found it kind of a bit strange, like comedians love to use the phrase, so just the other day, last 2 days ago, recently. But it always has to be something that happened recently, and they always make a joke. And we know a lot of people when, we know their stories. It did not happen recently. It happened a long time ago. It happened a year ago. It happened 2 years ago. But they still need to say that, so just the other week I was blah, blah, blah. Just the other day, last week. And I'm like, why? Why can't you say, so a year ago, this is what happened to me. You're not going to, it's going to be hilarious. It's nothing wrong with it. Like I have that Richard story about the guy hitting on me. Obviously it was when I was younger. I can't say, so the other day I was in a nightclub dancing, because I just broke up with someone while wearing a wedding ring and, basically just broken up with my girlfriend. So I was feeling shitty. It just doesn't work. I mean, and I think it works better basically by saying, so when I was younger, like 20 years ago, this is what happened to me the first time a gay guy ever hit on me, because it shows how stupid and young and naive I was and how my mind made a big deal out of nothing and, the whole thing. And it shows like the immaturity that I had. And it works better as this was me a long time ago. Like, look how stupid I was. Look how young I was. Not in a bad way, but obviously in a naive, dumb, worrying much ado about nothing bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think it depends on, because if that's the point of your story, I was young, foolish, and naive. And now I'm old. So if that's the point of your
that's
story,
it. Just old.
Then that's important to set up that story by saying, when I was young, stupid, and naive, I was at a bar and blah blah. But so if that's the purpose, and or for example, one of our comedians here, a very funny guy, Kirill Voronin, he was also a guest on one of our podcasts. He has his own podcast, right? So he had a big set about dating and stuff like this, and then he got married and he had a daughter and stuff. So now he can't really, because some of his jokes are now about his wife and his daughter, so he can't really say, last week I went on a date and this girl was so weird.
Of course, but you can still update it. This is what a lot of comedians don't seem to be able to do. I don't get why, but he could very easily just go, so back in my dating days, like, thank God that's fucking over.
That's what I'm saying. That's what he does. He says,
that's
I'm
great.
now married and have a child, but when I was dating, and then he goes into that same bit. So that's why sometimes you have to premise that it was long time ago. But why those jokes like the other day, right? Why? Because if I'm saying something that could have been yesterday, but also could have been 3 years ago, it's more like people feel better if it was yesterday.
All right.
Because if it's something that, I was changing my light bulb and something funny happened, that doesn't matter
when it happened. So you might as well put it recently. I
would say like yesterday or 2 days ago or last week. Why? Because if I say 3 years ago, I was changing a light bulb and this happened, people would be like, you're telling me a 3-year-old joke? You're telling me a 3-year-old story. Doesn't anything happen in your life? So if I say, so I matched with this girl on Tinder yesterday, it sounds like, ooh, wow, what they're like, it's new, it's fresh. Tell us what happened. So if you have to say that it happened some time ago, I think it works. It gives that context. You were young, you were foolish, you were a student, you didn't know what's happening, you were single, whatever. But if it's timeless, if the joke is timeless, I would say always go for a few days ago, recently, yesterday.
But can't you just say, for example, no time? You don't mention time. You just say, so I once matched with this girl on Tinder and oh my God, blah, 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 blah.
You know what's the difference? If we talk about such things, it's maybe just my point of view or my subjective opinion. But I think why many comics use that the other day, a few days ago, recently, because it sounds like it's still unresolved or it's still fresh. And people are more, because if I tell them 4 years ago I matched with a girl, then they're like, okay, that's like,
So what you're saying is it sounds topical. It sounds current event of your life.
But no, but if I don't mention time, as you said, like, why don't you just skip this bit? If I just start the joke,
I matched with a girl on Tinder.
I matched with a girl on Tinder. It's, it's too vague of, because I think it requires more information. Like, was it the first time you installed Tinder? Was it yesterday? Was it for the show today? Was it, You know what I mean? That's why I think I say, like, a few days ago I matched with a girl on Tinder, and I see the people like, ooh. And then what happened? Because it might still be relevant.
Aha. So this is what going into today's topic, being that in a way people want current events of some kind. Like we kind of crave, we want things to be current so they don't sound stale, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think people don't want to, because if you're going with those, if I go with a Tinder swindler joke, they understand that this joke was written today or yesterday. I don't need to say, a few days ago I watched this documentary. It came out a few days ago, right? But if you're telling a story or a joke or whatever that is not really period specific or time period specific, it doesn't have a timestamp, it doesn't have a expiration date, I think it's better to try to fake the relevancy. That's not a word.
Yeah. Relevancy is a word.
Is that a word?
Yeah, it's a word.
I felt like I just made up an amazing new word, but it's just a word that exists.
Sorry.
So yeah, so it gives some relevancy to the joke, and people are more invested because it doesn't feel like you're telling us some like old, chewed up, and like, you know, kind of boring, tired story or joke. You're telling us something that happened a few days ago. And especially if you're then doing like weekly shows like we always did, and some people come every Friday or every second Friday and stuff, it would be better for them to hear a few days ago than like 6 months ago, and they're like, well, I was here 6 months ago, why didn't you tell me that then? Or whatever.
Yeah. But do you think also, like, if someone comes to our shows, for example, and then you hear, so the other day I matched with a girl on Tinder, and then like they don't come to our shows, and about 6 months later they come back, and maybe you stopped doing the joke for a while, but then, okay, let's say a year later, you decide to like use this joke again, and you're like, so the other day I matched with this girl on Tinder, and the person's listening is going, wait a minute, you said that a year ago.
I mean, it's not, I don't think if anyone is that like pedantic and will like, you know, really
lie to me. Are all your jokes lies? And to get the answer to that question, you should listen to one of our earlier episodes in which Igor reveals whether his jokes are based on reality or not. What was the name of that episode?
Are Igor's jokes based on reality or not?
No, it had a special title.
It wasn't. It was Truth.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
That's
Something like that,
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's if they would really split hairs and be like, if someone would come to me after the show and they would
slap
like,
you across the face.
Wait a minute. Wait a
Dare you.
minute. Wait a minute. A year ago, you said that same story, and that was a few days ago, and now it's again a few days ago. What kind of lying piece of shit are you?
Or do you just keep going out with the wrong girls where this sort of ship happens again? Have you not learned from your own lessons?
Have you not learned from your mistakes? But yeah, I think people don't even notice it. If they've heard it before, they won't notice it. Like that I said, a few days ago or this week or something, or recently, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, this is if I say recently, what's recently? 2 minutes ago or 2 years ago, what do you know what's recent for me? So, you know, but I think in general, it's better to use such things because then the people who are not aware of the story get pulled in. People who are aware of the story don't really care. And if they already heard the joke, they're going to probably just look at their phone or something anyways. If they don't want to hear it again, they're not going to be like, well, the joke is great and I laughed again, but you lied about the time period.
Yeah. I think I think people are pretty aware of the fact that that's a given, that the comedians do that. They kind of lie about the time periods to a degree. It's sort of like one of those, like when you go to see a movie and you know, suspension of disbelief or whatever it's called. Where, you know, there's certain parts of the comedy show you're just like, yeah, we'll just let it slide. Like, you know, it's not obviously recently or not just yesterday this happened or this morning, blah, blah. Like, you know, just before the show. No, you didn't.
There is also that thing in like literature and cinematography and stuff that's called...
Bullshit?
I want to say, bullshit. That's the one. I want to say unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Where basically the person that's telling you the story has the freedom to change... Like, they are the only source of that story for you anyways.
Yeah.
So whatever they say,
you're going to have to accept it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So that's why if I say recently, and that recently can be for as long as I want it to be, because I'm doing this joke, you know, my way. I'm telling you this joke.
Exactly.
So only if there is some like milestone or something that I have to, you know, I can't be like, oh, recently I had a child. It's 14 years old now. You know, that's not recently. So then you have to specify my 14-year-old child when they were born. So that was long time ago, right? Yeah. That's how it plays into the joke.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of covered the different types of current event topics, really, like, you know, the personal current events and how we use it, but also the previous ones. And I think like a lot of it, I did agree with that, what that comedian said about making the broad brushstrokes, like, trying to get that idea, that feeling for it. Because then it changes, I think, a topical joke or a joke that only has a longevity for a short period of time into something with a bit more longevity, or something you can update easily to a new relevant.
You mean something with a bit more relevancy?
Yeah, but overall, in a more general sort of sense, getting to the themes, like maybe dealing with broader themes.
Now I feel like we should have called this one the relevancy of jokes, because I invented that word. It's a really good word.
But you did it.
You don't shut up, Merriam-Webster.
Yeah. Miriam, but thank you very much.
Is it Merriam-Webster?
Yeah, it's Merriam-Webster.
Oh, shut up, Merriam-Webster.
Webster.
That's
Copyright infringement.
That's
avoided.
a Chinese dictionary. Merriam-Webster.
Yeah, lovely.
Right. So. Yeah, so if you have enjoyed this topic and you have some comments, questions, or suggestions maybe for future topics of our episodes, feel free to subscribe to us, like us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Even if you need to use a VPN, and depending on where you are.
Don't recommend illegal ways of...
Oh, yeah, no, don't use that. No.
So, yeah, just find us on these social networks and we won't ask how.
Yeah, and send a comment and things.
Yeah, like, share. Yeah. And if
I don't think Patreon has been stopped, has it? Yeah.
I don't know, but if you want, you can donate to us on Patreon as well. It would help us largely to continue working on this podcast.
Trying to create better jokes.
And try to create better jokes and better content. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Igor Mondae.
And I've been David Munoz.
Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye, good night, ciao.